At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hello and welcome to Around the World today. I'm your host, Carrie Davis, and this is Series 8, Episode 2, entitled Flags, Fast Fashion and False Patriotism. So in this week's episode, we're diving into the story that's been sparking debate online and on the streets and in our national press, all centred around a young woman, a Union Jack dress, and the strange and often contradictory ways we in Britain treat our national flag. We've seen the usual online outrage, especially from the usual corners, e.g. Reform UK, Conservatives, right-wing commentators, and yes, even Tommy Robson supporters. But here's the thing. What does patriotism really mean? Is it about draping yourself in a flag from a fast fashion store? Or is it something deeper and more meaningful that goes beyond borders and symbols? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of our perceived patriotism and explore what the flag actually represents and ask some uncomfortable questions about who gets to define respect. We're also to reflect on what Jesus had to say about nations, borders, and the call to love our neighbour. Because when symbols become more important than people, we lose sight of what truly matters. So stay tuned with us, because this isn't just about one dress. It's about what kind of nation we want to be.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Welcome to Around the World today. Series 8, Episode 2. So, symbols aren't sacred, people are. Let's start with this simple but uncomfortable truth. We've confused the flag with the country. We treat the Union Jack as if it's sacred in itself, as if it's beyond criticism, and rather than what it really is, a symbol. And like all symbols, it only has meaning if the people underneath it are protected, dignified, and free. But somewhere along the line, we've replaced substance with surface. But we have, haven't we? You can now buy a Union Jack oven gloves, underpants, dog jackets, birthday cakes, and flip-flops. You can get a glittery Union Jack printed on a disposable cocktail cup, made ironically in a factory in Vietnam. And yet, the same people who scream about respecting the flag get offended when someone suggests that maybe, just maybe, we should also represent the people. The flag is meant to represent veterans, teachers, carers, immigrants who work double shifts in the NHS, the disabled, the vulnerable, the single mum trying to feed her family and heat her home. That's not disrespecting the flag. That's taking it seriously. Because here's the truth. There's no honour in wrapping yourself in a flag if you're using it to beat down your fellow citizens. There's no pride in wearing it while standing by as the country it represents is gutted of services, empathy or justice. Talk to any veteran. Not the ones wheeled out for photo ops, but the real ones. The ones who live in council flats. The ones who are navigating PTSD in an underfunded mental health system. The ones who have medals in a drawer and no heating in winter. Ask them what the flag means and about their sacrifice. They say responsibility. They say duty to something bigger than yourself. And you can't claim to respect their sacrifice if you cheer when their support services are cut, or vote for parties that leave them behind, or mock the idea of social care for people who've been broken by war. The uncomfortable reality is this: wearing the flag isn't the same as honouring it and painting your face red, white and blue while shouting "send them back" or "take our country back" says a lot more about you than it does about Britain. Let us pause for a moment and look at this from a Christian perspective. Jesus was not a nationalist, and he did not endorse blind loyalty to any empire, kingdom or flag. In fact, he actively challenged the political and religious powers of his time. He walked with the poor. He called out the hypocrites. He lifted up the outsider. He didn't build walls. He broke them down. Think of how radical that was for his time, in his time of first century Judea. A place where purity, identity and tribal loyalties were everything. And yet Jesus kept saying, love your neighbour, love your enemy, do good to those who persecute you. When people tried to trap him by asking, who is my neighbour? He flipped the script. He really did flip the script. He didn't point to someone from the synagogue. He pointed to a Samaritan. A hated outsider, a heretic, in the eyes of the religious establishment. That's the gospel. Not waving your country's flag, but helping the person bleeding in the road. Not protecting your national identity, but protecting the human being in need. In the gospel, according to Matthew, chapter 25, verses 35 to 40, and I will read this to you. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So Jesus wasn't waving a national flag. He wasn't shouting, God save Judea. He didn't lead marches against Rome's occupation, dressed in tribal colours. In fact, he often challenged those oppressed with purity, territory and identity. When asked, what's the greatest commandment? Again, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. And just to clarify who the neighbour he meant was, Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan, a story that deliberately positioned an outsider, a foreigner, as the hero, not the religious leaders, not the nationalist Puritists, the man whose people hated by the majority of them. That's who Jesus lifted up. And when he said, my kingdom is not of this world, he was rejecting the idea of nationalism altogether. He wasn't building a political nation. He was building a kingdom based on love, justice, mercy, and peace, without borders. Without borders. Have you seen in the United Kingdom media, in the press, of boats, small boats, and the border operations stopping them? Border force stopping these boats, taking them on board, because these boats that people are travelling from France to the United Kingdom on are not safe. But you see comments in Facebook, on Twitter, in the news, send them back, take them back to France, shoot the boats. How? So we're not meant to save people? We're not meant to help them? Let us remember again in Matthew 25, Jesus did say, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. He didn't say, I was draped in a flag and you gave me applause. He really didn't say that. The biggest applause you can do for Jesus, for Christ, for your faith, for God, is to help these people. He said, I was in need and you showed up. That's the real call here. I was in need and you showed up. There are many unsung heroes every day in the United Kingdom, around the world. Doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, social workers, people working in voluntary organisations such as food banks, feeding the homeless, feeding the weak, people working in drug referral centres, people who see someone on the street and walk them back to their hotel because they're having a mental breakdown, because that person is homeless, that person has nowhere to live and is currently being housed in a hotel. I've heard stories of this. I've seen this. These unsung heroes do this blind loyalty, do this because this is what we're taught as Christians. Many of these people who are complaining about small boats will also complain about churches closing. But when was the last time they actually attended a church? When was the last time that they picked up their Bible? Because surely they would know if they did. I was in need and you showed up. Now, it's not blind allegiance to symbols, what Jesus was proclaiming, but radical compassion. Not waving flags at protests and parades, but feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, and protecting that stranger. We saw the fall of Afghanistan, and we saw that there are pictures, there are video of people just wanting to get out because they worked with British forces and they knew that they were going to die. But the government of the day decided to make it harder for them to get to the UK. We didn't look after that stranger, did we? The Union Jack didn't protect that stranger. And if our modern nationalism teaches us to care more about a piece of fabric than a fellow human being, we've made our flag an idol of the nation, not something to be proud of. And we've lost sight of what the gospel teaches us, what our British values teach us, what we should be doing and looking after one another, our neighbours. Our neighbours are us. Have you worked this out? That we are those neighbours that Christ were talking about, the people of God. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States. It doesn't matter if you're in China. It does not matter if you're in Palestine, Israel, Syria, Russia, Ukraine. But these are our neighbours. These are the people. These are our brothers and sisters in Christ. These are people. Human beings. We all bleed the same. We are all the same. I will leave you with this thought. The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for the one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So where does that leave us? If patriotism isn't waving flags, shouting over others, or buying Union Jack socks from the parking bin at Marks and Spencer's, then what is it? It's building up your country by caring for people. Real patriotism is helping your neighbour when they fall on hard times. It's standing up for public services like care for all, not just the ones who can afford private healthcare. It's challenging your government when it lies or causes harm, even if the government wraps itself up in the flag while doing it. It's acknowledging your nation's flaws, not hiding behind a veil of misplaced pride. In short, patriotism is a verb. It's something you do, not something you were. And it's not easy. It takes humility. It takes service. It means putting the country before party, values before slogans, and truth before comfort. Let me say something uncomfortable. Some of the loudest voices claiming to love this country have cheered while it's been gutted from the inside out. They voted for policies that have slashed school budgets, shut libraries, closed youth centres, and left food banks as the last safety net. They've wrapped themselves up in the flag and called themselves proud Brits. But pride without purpose is just ego. And patriotism without compassion, that's just nationalism in disguise. So, let me leave you with this. If your love for your country makes you hate others, silence the vulnerable, or sneer at those in need, that's not patriotism. That's nationalism, a performative nationalism. Jesus didn't die for a flag. He died for the people. And he rose again, not to establish a throne in Jerusalem, but to break down the walls between us. As a Christian, as a citizen, as a human being, we are called to move more understanding, more empathy, more action. Let's build a vision of patriotism that doesn't just wave a flag, but lifts people up. He didn't point to someone from the synagogue, he pointed to a Samaritan, a hated outsider, a heretic in the eyes of the religious establishment. That's the gospel. Not waving your country's flag, but helping the person bleeding in the road. Not protecting your national identity, but protecting the human being in need. Let's remember this too, that Jesus himself was a refugee. He fled with Mary and Joseph to Egypt as a baby, escaping political violence and a corrupt ruler. So when modern Christians sneer at asylum seekers or migrants, or say they should go back, I do have to wonder to myself, have they read the Gospels? Because the Christ I know and I follow was born into an empire, fled tyranny, lived poor, challenged the corrupt entities, and broke bread with outcasts. And that there's Paul's writing to the Galatians. There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. That's not just a theological statement, is it? This is full rejection of tribalism. It's a rebuke of division. It's the blueprint for a borderless kingdom where love triumphs loyalty and the stranger is embraced, not rejected. So if your idea of patriotism tells you to turn your back on others, especially the weak, the foreign, or the other, then it's not biblical. It's not Christ-like. It's nationalism dressed in a pretty bow. We need to call it for what it is. It is a distortion of the Gospels. It is a distortion of the teachings of Jesus Christ. It is a distortion of life, and it is a distortion of being British. For many of these people, they also argue that we are a Christian country. Then if we're a Christian country, maybe, just ever so maybe, we should possibly, definitely, be following the teachings of the gospel. And that means helping the poor, the sick, the lame, the foreigner, the oppressed. It doesn't mean going to a hotel housing asylum seekers. The whole point of asylum is that they are fleeing tyranny, oppression. It doesn't mean causing havoc for an underfunded police force. It also doesn't mean political leaders of political parties using the police protecting a peaceful protest and escorting people away from the protest as if they are helping them. They were taking them out of harm's way because the police officers found these people to be vulnerable. As Christian citizens, as human beings, we are called to more understanding, more empathy and more action, as I've said. Let us build a vision of patriotism that just isn't about waving a flag or wearing it as a t-shirt. Let us actually show some respect to the flag. Let us hang it with respect. Thank you for joining me on Series 8, Episode 2 of Around the World Today. I'm Terry Davis, and it's been great having you here. If you have thoughts, reflections, or even disagreements, I want to hear from you. Join our Facebook group, or find us on Instagram. Drop us a message, or you via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Until next time. Don't ask what the flag stands for. Ask what you stand for.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.